Hi, I'm Tim Tyler, and this is a video about religion, and basically in this video I'm going to explain why I like religion and which parts of it I find valuable. Firstly, some brief background material about me. Historically, I was raised in a family that attended Quaker services, but by about the age of 11 I'd figured out that talk about God was a lot of nonsense, and my incredulity about Jesus and the Bible has increased over time since then. These days I take a dim view of Christianity and Islam. The Abrahamic religions are forces of darkness and ignorance, it seems to me, in modern times, and I don't see any realistic way forwards for them that doesn't involve the wiping out of all their nonsense. However, unlike many other scientists, I like religion. I think it's a valuable and important part of human culture. Not all religions are Abrahamic. There's also the Eastern religions, Buddhism, Taoism and Hinduism, and it irritates me somewhat that these are either classified as not really being religions because they lack elements of faith and theism that many of the Western religions have, or else they put them into the religious dustbin along with the Abrahamic traditions. It doesn't seem to me very good that most of the people who speak about atheism have little or no understanding of the more positive aspects of religion, and typically don't seem to have had any religious experiences. Some of them even flaunt their ignorance on the topic by comparing scientific awe to a religious experience. In my view, of the most famous atheists of the day, it's only really Sam Harris who has sufficient appreciation of the virtues of that aspect of religion to be able to criticise it without appearing to have a rather one-sided understanding of the topic. I think religion is best treated rather like the way we treat folk medicine, as a valuable but unreliable fountain of traditional knowledge. Religion, it seems to me, has a number of roles to play in society. One is a signalling role. Interest in religion, philosophy and morality signals that you value such things and have time to spend on them. It also signals that you're interested in kind of being good towards your fellow man, so a deep interest in morality taken to the extremes that many religious people take it to signals that you're going to be trustworthy and good. This signalling role helps explain the links between religion and love and marriage and sexuality because of the role of trust and being good in sexual relationships, basically. And another role religions play is promoting social development and cooperative behaviour, and I think religions can also help promote self-development and self-realisation. Traditional religions have got some things right. If you look at the Eastern religions, they promote the doctrine that part of you is ancient and that you can get in touch with your kind of ancestors through introspective means. They also promote the idea that death isn't the end, and if you look at evolutionary biology, there's some truth in these original kind of ideas. The Eastern religions didn't get them exactly right, but there is some part of you that's extremely old, and you can get in touch with it using introspective methods. Also, the idea that death isn't the end, although reincarnation isn't quite the way it was pictured in the Eastern religions, you can, or part of you can, survive beyond your death. And they also got the idea that your personality wasn't part of what survived beyond your death. They kind of pictured a wheel of death and rebirth, and again that's similar to the picture painted by biology. And another idea is that you could escape from this kind of cycle of death and rebirth by your own actions, and that if you spent long enough staring at a cave wall or something like that and meditating, then you'd escape from this cycle of death and rebirth. And you can see from biology that that's quite accurate. If you live a chaste life and don't have sex and don't have babies, then indeed the part of you that would normally go on and last into future generations is extinguished and doesn't carry on in the cycle of death and rebirth. So if you look at a religion like Buddhism, it does seem to have some virtues. You can see that they were struggling with trying to find the truth and trying to find good ways to live. One of the kind of key ideas of Buddhism is that happiness lies within you, and that you can hack your own brain in order to reduce your own level of suffering, and also that you can do that in a way which isn't particularly harmful to you. the kind of one of the key technologies that's proposed by many of the Eastern religions is meditation, and the idea there is that spending time with limited sensory input can be a valuable means of learning about the operation of your own mind, basically. So if you cut out your external senses, your sense of sight and your sense of sound, then you see more clearly all the things that are going on inside you, and they're magnified in the same way as if you're a blind person, then your sense of hearing becomes magnified. So they use this technique in order to kind of get in touch with yourself and discover how your motivational systems work and your sense of self-perception works. Buddhism is not without its flaws. I'm not saying it's got everything right. There's kind of a political side to Buddhism, and it's easy to imagine how the idea that happiness lies within you could be exploited by a dictator, for example, who wanted to make people in their country happy with their lot. So there the doctrine would be that it doesn't matter what your material situation is like, but because happiness lies within you, you can make the best of whatever situation you're in, and it's easy to see how that can kind of be used by political people to manipulate the general population. So that's a side of Buddhism that's not so pleasant. And also the techniques that are promoted by the Eastern religions, they're quite powerful means of changing yourself and your identity and your relationship with your world and other people, and because their methods are powerful, they're also dangerous. Often these religions advocate kind of focusing down into the moment where you're alive at the moment, like kind of forgetting about the past and the future and concentrating on what's going on now. And the whole way the human brain is wired up is to predict the future and analyse events in the past and use your knowledge of what's gone well and what's gone badly to help you guide your actions in the future to promote things that are positive for you, basically. And kind of some of the meditational techniques fight against that, and it's not necessarily a terribly positive thing to do. And also there's common idea of mantra meditation, where you basically overload the parts of your brain that deal with speech and thinking to cut off your internal dialogue, and you kind of repeat the same phrase over and over to yourself again, and it basically damps down that part of you, and that has some positive aspects, but on the other hand the internal dialogue has some uses as well, and it's kind of fairly radical major surgery, and it's quite a powerful technique for altering how your mind works, and people should be careful with it and realise that there are dangers associated with it. So the religious traditions that I found most valuable in many respects are the bodywork traditions, including yoga and the Chinese martial arts. And one of the basic ideas there was that if you meditated without first preparing your body, you'd be distracted by your body and its sensations with cramps and sluggishness and aches and lethargy and sleep and itches and so on. So a whole technology of preparing the body was developed, which aimed at making the body transparent so that its sensations wouldn't interfere with meditation. And then lastly, there's the issue of whether or not we can usefully reinvent all the religious traditions, or whether or not we have to rely on the traditions that have been handed down by us. And it seems to me that many of the attempts to recreate kind of traditional cultures from scratch have produced poor mimics of the originals. There's a number of cases where culture has been reinvented from scratch, and a kind of quite useful one is the case of Japan. Japan is culture, it's fairly heavily rooted in Chinese culture, but they didn't like the idea of using the Chinese originals, and they kind of reinvented everything. So rather than having kung fu, you've got karate, and rather than having tai chi, you've got aikido, and they even reinvented the game of Go. And basically all their kind of modern reinventions seem retrospectively to be quite seriously inferior to the Chinese originals. They've kind of got some strengths, but the kind of Chinese originals are deeper and better, and kind of the Japanese made a number of mistakes in trying to reinvent things and didn't do it properly and didn't understand the virtues of the original systems they were copying. And there's kind of other cases as well in the bodywork related fields as well. The Alexander technique, Feldenkrais, Pilates is kind of a reinvention of yoga or an attempt, and it just kind of misses out a lot of the virtues of the original traditional discipline, basically. So I'm not very impressed with what I've seen of attempts to reinvent basic religious ideas without kind of basing them fairly heavily on the originals. Reinvention just is too kind of hasty and without enough depth to capture the originals. And then it's easy for Westerners to look at their own vacuous religious traditions and to conclude that all religions are equally worthless. However, I think that would be a mistake. Other religions seem to me to have a lot more going for them and are worthy objects of study. So, enjoy.